Before chicken farms existed, before factory farming, before meat was wrapped in plastic and stacked in supermarket fridges, there was another protein. It grew wild, in forests, on fallen logs, on the shaded sides of hillsides after rain. It asked for no planting, no watering, no tending. It simply appeared, and the people who found it and ate it every week were getting something that no piece of chicken, beef, or lamb could ever fully deliver. It carries 5 times more of what your body needs to build and repair itself than the same weight of raw chicken. It contains a specific compound found nowhere else on Earth that protects your brain, your cells, and your immune system simultaneously. And researchers studying the longest living populations on Earth keep finding the same thing. The people who live past 100 all have one food in common on their tables. Jesus walked through the forests and hillsides of Galilee. His disciples foraged from the land. And this food grew in those exact forests, on those exact hillsides, in the damp soil beneath the trees, every single autumn. The modern world replaced it with a factory-farmed breast fillet in a plastic bag, and your body has been missing it ever since. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what this food is, where God placed it in the story of creation, what it does inside your body that chicken simply cannot, and how to grow it yourself at home starting this week. But I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet. First, you need to see where it came from. Stay with me. Picture the forested hills above the Sea of Galilee just after the autumn rains. The air is cool and damp. The soil is dark and soft underfoot. The trees are old oak and carob and terebinth, their roots tangled deep into the limestone hillside. And pushing up through the leaf litter at the base of those ancient trees are clusters of something pale and firm and alive. Wild mushrooms, not a rare discovery, not something remarkable to the people who walked these paths every day, just part of what the forest offered after the first rains came, something you picked up on the way back from the field the same way you picked a handful of herbs from the garden or pulled a fig from the tree by the gate. They were foraged, dried, cooked into stews, eaten with bread and olive oil. They were not exotic. They were not expensive. They were simply what the land produced, freely, every season, for anyone who knew where to look. Your grandmother may not have lived on the hills of Galilee, but if she grew up in rural Nigeria, in the forests of the Philippines, in the mountains of Mexico, or in the countryside of Eastern Europe, your grandmother knew mushrooms. She picked them herself. She dried them in bunches near the window. She cooked them into everything because she knew, without a single study to show her, that the people who ate them regularly stayed stronger and sharper and healthier than the people who did not. She never called it medicine. She just called it food. And she was right about everything. Now, the food is mushroom, wild mushroom, foraged mushrooms, sun-dried mushrooms, the kind that grew on every hillside Jesus ever walked, the kind that ancient healers across 5 different civilizations all arrived at independently for the same reason. Because they watched what happened to the people who ate them, and what they saw was impossible to argue with. Let me show you where this food sits in the ancient world. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs were so convinced of the power of mushrooms that they declared them food of the gods and reserved them exclusively for royalty. Common people were not allowed to touch them. If something was good enough for pharaohs only, it was good enough to pay attention to. The ancient Romans called mushrooms food of the gods as well. Roman emperors specifically requested them at royal banquets. They were considered the highest form of table luxury, not because they were rare, but because their effects on the body were known and celebrated. Ancient Chinese healers documented mushroom use as medicine over 5,000 years ago. The reishi mushroom appears in the oldest Chinese medical texts as a supreme tonic, a food associated with long life, strength, and clarity of mind. They were not guessing. 5,000 years of consistent observation is not guesswork. And in the land of the Bible, the forests of Galilee and Judea were full of them. Wild porcini mushrooms grow naturally in the Mediterranean forests of Lebanon, Israel, and the surrounding hills. Oyster mushrooms grow on fallen trees throughout the region. After every autumn rain, the forest floor offered them to anyone who looked. Jesus and his disciples walked those forests constantly. They foraged from the land because that is how everyone in first century Galilee lived. What the land produced went on the table, and the land produced mushrooms abundantly every single year. Ezekiel chapter 47 verse 12. God describes a land where fruit grows for food and leaves for healing. The ancient understanding of food was never separate from the understanding of medicine. What God grew was both, and mushrooms, growing wild in the forests of the biblical world, were among the most medicinally powerful foods the land ever produced. Now, the protein. Most people think of chicken when they think of protein. Lean, white, clean. The standard recommendation. The default answer when someone asks what to eat after exercise or how to build muscle or how to recover after illness. And chicken is fine. But here's what most people do not know about what they are missing when they reach for chicken instead of mushrooms. When you dry mushrooms and use them in the same way you would use meat, the protein comparison changes completely. 100 grams of dried porcini mushrooms contains 35 grams of protein. 100 grams of raw chicken breast contains about 27 grams. Dried mushrooms deliver more protein per gram than the most popular protein food in the modern world, and they do it with a fraction of the calories. That means your body gets more protein for less metabolic cost, more building material, less burden. But here is what the protein comparison alone does not tell you. When you eat chicken, you get protein. That is mostly what you get. Some B vitamins, some minerals, and that is about it. When you eat mushrooms, you get protein alongside something called beta-glucans. Beta-glucans are found in mushroom cell walls and nowhere else on Earth in the same form. They interact directly with the immune system in a way that has been studied in hundreds of clinical trials. They activate the immune cells that hunt down pathogens, clear out damaged cells, and rebuild tissue after illness or injury. Beta-glucans do not just help the immune system, they train it. They make it faster and smarter and more capable over time. Chicken does not do that. No meat does that. Only mushrooms. And there is one more thing inside mushrooms that stops researchers every single time they measure it. It is called ergothioneine. Ergothioneine is an antioxidant that is found in significant amounts in only one place: mushrooms. Your body cannot make it. No other food provides it in meaningful quantities. And researchers studying aging have found that people with higher ergothioneine levels in their blood age more slowly, maintain sharper cognitive function longer, and have lower rates of neurological disease. This compound is so unique that some researchers have suggested the human body evolved a specific transporter protein just to absorb it from food. The body built a dedicated system to receive this compound because it is that important. And the only way to get it is from mushrooms. Your grandmother, who ate mushrooms every week without knowing any of this, was maintaining ergothioneine levels that most people today are chronically deficient in. Not because they are eating badly, because they replaced mushrooms with chicken. And chicken simply does not have it. Here is something that will genuinely surprise you. Mushrooms are the only plant food on Earth that produces vitamin D. Not by processing, not by enrichment, not by fortification, by their own biology. The same way your skin produces vitamin D when sunlight touches it, mushrooms produce vitamin D when sunlight touches them. Place a handful of mushrooms gill side up in direct sunlight for 2 hours. The vitamin D content increases by over 400%. Chicken contains almost no vitamin D. 100 grams of raw chicken gives you less than 1 microgram of vitamin D. 100 grams of sun-exposed mushrooms can give you over 10 micrograms. That is 10 times more vitamin D from a food most people walk past at the grocery store without a second thought. Vitamin D deficiency is one of the most widespread hidden health problems in the modern world. It is linked to weakened immunity, depression, bone loss, hormonal imbalance, and increased risk of serious illness. Billions of people take vitamin D supplements every day to compensate for what they are not getting from food. The ancient people who foraged wild mushrooms and dried them in the sun were getting vitamin D from food naturally, the way God designed nutrition to work. Nobody was taking a pill. Nobody was deficient. The forest was providing what the body needed, and the people living close to the land were simply receiving it. So what happened? How did a food ancient Egyptians reserved for royalty, that Roman emperors called food of the gods, that 5,000 years of Chinese healers prescribed as their most important medicine, that wild forests delivered freely every autumn across the biblical world, end up forgotten? The answer is the same every time. Industrial food arrived. Profit decided what we eat, and the most convenient, most scalable, most profitable option replaced everything that had come before it. Chicken farming began expanding rapidly through the mid-20th century. A chicken raised in a modern facility goes from egg to packaged meat in about 6 weeks. 6 weeks. The entire cycle. It can be frozen, shipped, packaged, and sold anywhere in the world at a predictable cost and a predictable weight. Mushrooms cannot be scaled that easily. Wild foraging cannot be automated. Sun drying requires time and space. And a food that grows on forest floors and fallen logs and shaded hillsides after autumn rain does not fit neatly into a factory. So chicken went on every plate in every country in the world. Nutritionists pointed to the protein. Doctors recommended it, and the ancient protein that Roman emperors once reserved for special occasions became something you found in the back corner of the produce section near the salad bags, pre-sliced in a plastic tray, pale and odorless, a ghost of what wild mushrooms actually are. And here is the quiet tragedy underneath all of that. Nobody told us what we were losing. Nobody said, by the way, when you replace the wild mushrooms your ancestors forged with a chicken breast from a factory, you are giving up ergothionine, beta-glucans, vitamin D, and a class of immune-supporting compounds that chicken simply does not contain. They just said eat more protein. And protein was all that chicken offered. So that is what most people got. The mushrooms were never gone. The forests were still full of them. The grocery stores still stocked them in that corner of the produce section. But the knowledge of what they actually were and what they actually did was quietly pushed aside. Your grandmother still knew. She picked them herself. She never replaced them with a chicken breast because in her world, the forest was still the kitchen. That knowledge is worth recovering. I want to take you somewhere. It is an autumn evening in the hills above Capernaum. The rains came 3 days ago, and the forest floor is damp and dark and alive. Peter is walking the path that runs between the lake and the hills. He has been on the water since before dawn. His hands are tired and his shoulders ache. He is carrying an empty basket, but the forest has been generous today. At the base of an old oak tree, pushing up through the leaf litter in a wide golden ring, is a cluster of wild mushrooms, porcini, dark caps, thick stems, firm and dense with the moisture of 3 days of rain. He kneels beside them and fills his basket without hurry. He has done this since he was a child. Every autumn, after the first rain, his father showed him where to look. His grandfather showed his father. He carries them home in the evening. They go into the pot with olive oil and garlic and whatever herbs are growing by the door. They become part of the meal the same way bread becomes part of the meal. Not exotic, not medicinal, just food. Simple, daily, ordinary food from the land that God provided. Peter does not know about ergothionine or beta-glucans or vitamin D. He does not know about immune activation or protein per calorie ratio. He just knows that in a house where mushrooms appear on the table regularly, people stay well. He carries his basket home through the evening forest. The basket is heavy. The air smells of rain and oak and earth. The forest gave what the body needed. It always did. Let me give you something to take home. 3 simple things. The first you can do today. Buy the best mushrooms you can find. Not the pale pre-sliced kind in the plastic tray. Look for whole mushrooms. Cremini, portobello, oyster, or shiitake. These are the varieties with the highest concentration of the compounds we discussed. Before you cook them, do this. Lay them gill side up on a plate or tray and place them in direct sunlight for 2 hours. Outside, on a windowsill, anywhere sunlight can reach them directly. This simple step increases the vitamin D content by over 400%. No supplement required. No extra cost. 2 hours in the sun. Then cook them simply. Slice them thick. Heat olive oil in a pan until it shimmers. Add crushed garlic. Add the mushrooms. Let them cook undisturbed for 4 to 5 minutes on each side until they are deep golden brown at the edges. Salt at the end. Add fresh thyme or rosemary if you have it. That is the whole meal, or the base of any meal. Mushrooms, olive oil, garlic, herbs, every ingredient scriptural. Every one of them doing more for your body together than any protein supplement ever could. The second step, start drying mushrooms. Dried mushrooms are where the protein concentration is highest. Slice them thin. Lay them on a rack in the sun for 2 to 3 days, or dry them in your oven at the lowest setting for 4 to 6 hours. Store them in a glass jar in a dry, cool place. They last for months. Add a tablespoon of dried mushroom powder to warm water, to soups, to sauces, to anything. The dried powder is the most concentrated form of everything mushrooms contain. A tablespoon of dried porcini powder has more protein, more ergothionine, and more immune compounds than a much larger serving of raw mushroom. The third step, grow your own. Oyster mushrooms are the easiest food crop a person can grow. You need a bag of straw or wood shavings, a mushroom growing kit from a garden store or online, and a warm, humid corner of your kitchen. That is it. Oyster mushroom kits are available for under $10. You open the bag, mist it with water twice a day, keep it away from direct sunlight, and within 10 to 14 days you have fresh mushrooms growing in your kitchen. One kit produces multiple flushes of mushrooms over several weeks. You harvest, eat, and wait for the next flush. This is food you grow yourself, in your home, with no garden required, no outdoor space needed, no climate restrictions. God designed mushrooms to grow without soil, without a field, without irrigation, on the simplest organic material available. They grow on fallen logs. They grow on straw. They grow in a bag in your kitchen. That is not a coincidence. That is design. Before chicken farms existed, before factory farming, before protein was measured in grams on a nutrition label, the forest provided what the body needed. Wild mushrooms on the hillsides of Galilee, dried in the autumn sun, cooked with olive oil and garlic and the herbs that grew beside every path, carried home in baskets by fishermen and farmers and ordinary people who never once thought about protein per calorie or vitamin D content or ergothionine levels. They just picked what the forest offered and fed their families with it. And their families were strong. The forest is still offering it. The grocery store produce section still stocks it in that corner near the salad bags. The mushroom kit is still $10 online. The 2 hours of sunlight that transforms an ordinary mushroom into a vitamin D source is still available every day. You do not need a supplement. You do not need a prescription. You do not need a factory-farmed breast fillet in a plastic tray. You need what God grew in the forest. Simple, ancient, and still exactly as powerful as it was the day it was placed there. Drop a comment and tell me which part of this video surprised you most. Was it the ergothionine that only mushrooms contain? The vitamin D that 2 hours of sunlight unlocks? Or the fact that dried mushrooms deliver more protein per gram than the chicken most people are eating every day? The forest is still full. Go pick something.